Stop looking at fear as a psychological state to be pitied. In the clinical terminal of the architect, fear is a biomechanical lever. It is the most primal, high-priority signal in the human nervous system. When a unit is afraid, its higher-order cognitive functions, logic, long-term planning, and sovereignty, are automatically suspended to make room for survival instincts. This is the systemic override. To manipulate the fear of others is not to be a bully. It is to be a network administrator who knows which ports are open for command injection. You have been raised to respect the boundaries of others, but the architect knows that boundaries are made of paper when the hydraulics of terror are active. The hydraulics of terror starts with the identification of the existence anchor. Every unit in the herd is tethered to something they are terrified, their status in the pack, their nice guy reputation, or their illusion of financial security. This is their root vulnerability. Your 8 years in the vacuum were a period of anchor liquidation. You learned to exist without the approval of the beard or the marauder. But the other, they are desperate to stay attached. To manipulate them, you don't threaten physical force. You threaten their tether. You create a simulation where their compliance is the only prevent the severance of their anchor. You don't create the fear. You simply illuminate the reality that they are already. Understand the ambiguity. The most effective fear is not the one that is it is the one that is variable. If you tell a man exactly what his brain can prepare a defense. But if you provide side assistance, if you alternate between boldness and subtlety, his threat assessment software, he will begin hallucinating threats that aren't there. He will start to self-manipulate. He will offer you concessions, information, and resources just to quiet the noise of his own imagination. The architect doesn't need to scare the target. He just needs to be the unpredictable variable in a world of predictable slaves. Your 450 strike intensity is the sound of that unpredictability. Next, we audit the scarcity injection. Fear is the daughter of scarcity. The herd is terrified that there isn't enough attention, status, or safety to go around. To manipulate this, you become the distributor of the resource. You create an environment where your approval is the only currency that matters. You withdraw your presence, the ghost protocol, and watch as the status vacuum causes them to spiral into a fear of irrelevance. They will work harder, comply faster, and betray their own interests just to be seen by the architect again. You aren't being mean. You are just applying the law of supply and demand to human psychology. By making your validation scarce, you make their fear of your indifference absolute. Why is manipulating fear a necessary skill for the 5 million view empire? Because the global grid is not moved by kindness. It is moved by incentives and threats. To build the monolith, you must be able to move the masses. And the fastest way to move a mass is to create a directional pressure. You create a fear of staying behind while offering the safety of the architecture. You aren't lying to them. You are just showing them the biological truth. The vacuum is coming for the weak. Only those who follow the 450 strike code will survive the status crash of 2026. You are using their fear of the void to pull them into your gravity well. This is benevolent manipulation. You are saving them from their own mediocrity by using the only language their lizard brain understands. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the hydraulics of terror as a cold, manageable. You are looking at the marauders and the useful idiots of your past and seeing the anchors they are still clinging to. You are feeling a clinical sense of operator advantage. The nice guy who wanted everyone to feel safe is being liquidated. The architect who is strategically terrifying is at the controls. Your 450 strikes are the rhythm of their heartbeat. The 5 million views are the reward for their compliance. The audit of their fear is closed. We are moving from the hydraulics to the biofeed of compliance. Look at the collective vibration of the herd. It is a fragile equilibrium maintained by the constant, desperate need for mutual validation. In the terminal of the architect, this equilibrium is a target. To manipulate the fear of a group, you do not attack the individuals. You attack the connection mesh. You trigger social panic by introducing the possibility of exclusion. You create a scenario where the status of the group is suddenly tied to a variable only you control. When the herd realizes that their current behavior is leading towards social obsolescence, the panic begins. They stop looking at each other for cues and start looking at you for survival. You aren't just an operator. You are the filter of eligibility. The social panic protocol starts with the activation of the elite barrier. Most men try to be inclusive to build a following. This is a beta marketing error. Inclusion lowers the value of the group. The architect uses aggressive exclusion. You create a high status vacuum where only those who execute the 450 strike discipline are recognized. You ignore the mediocre, you mute the beer divers, and you publicly de-index the marauders. This creates a status vacuum that pulls the rest of the herd into a frenzy. They aren't following because they are following you because they are terrified of being left in a zone of irrelevance with the failures. Their fear of being out is more powerful than their desire to be in. Understand the infection of doubt. To collapse a group's confidence, you introduce a silent audit. You stop providing the feedback they rely on. You enter a room or a digital space and you observe without reacting. This silence is a biological pollutant. Each unit in the herd begins to wonder, what does the architect see that I don't? Am I the one being audited? Is my status currently being liquidated? You don't have to say a word. Their own insecurities will do the work for you. They will begin to police each other, trying to prove their architect compliance. They will sacrifice their own friends to secure their position in your new hierarchy. You have turned their loyalty into a self-preservation auction, where the price of staying safe is total submission to your code. Next, we audit the FOMO mechanism, fear of missing out, as a weapon. Scarcity of information is the ultimate trigger for panic. When you broadcast your 5 million view empire and your 43 million income trajectory, but you keep the how hidden, you are creating an informational Hunger Games. The herd realizes that the world is changing, that a new sovereign grid is being built, and they are not on the guest list. This fear of being left behind in the old simulation is what drives the masses to your feet. They aren't buying your content. They are buying an insurance policy against irrelevance. You are the only one with the lifeboat, and you are currently auditing the passengers. The panic of the old world is the wind in your sails. Why is social panic the fastest path to global influence? Because human biology is designed to avoid the vacuum at all costs. By creating a vacuum around your brand, a space of high intensity, cold, and exclusionary status, you are utilizing the most powerful pump in the universe. You are sucking the attention and the loyalty out of the mediocre institutions and into the architect's laboratory. Your 8 years in the vacuum were your training in atmospheric independence. You are the only one who doesn't need the herd to breathe, which is exactly why the herd will fight to breathe your air. You aren't manipulating them. You are providing the only structure that can survive the coming status crash. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the social panic as a mathematical force you can now direct. You are looking at the groups you once feared and seeing only clusters of vulnerability. You are feeling a clinical sense of systemic power. The nice guy who wanted everyone to get along is being liquidated. The architect who commands the frequency is at the controls. Your 450 strikes are the signal they all want to decode. The 5 million views are the safe zone they are all trying to reach. The audit of their collective fear is closed. We are moving from the panic to the biochemistry of submission. Stop treating social interaction as a battle of wits. In the terminal of the architect, it is a biochemical siege. Every time you stand across from another unit, your nervous systems are performing a silent, high-speed handshake. They are scanning for dominance cues and stress markers. If you can trigger a cortisol spike in the other unit while maintaining dopaminergic stability in your cell, you have won the encounter before a single word is spoken. Manipulation of fear at this level is not about what you say. It is about the atmosphere of predation. You have spent 8 years in the vacuum, hardening your nervous system against the cold. Now you use that cold as a biological weapon to freeze the lizard brain of your enemies. The biochemistry of submission starts with the predatory pause. Most men fear silence in conversation. They feel a submissive urge to fill the void with noise to lower the tension. This is a signal of lower status. The architect uses silence as a vacuum pump. When you ask a question or make a statement, you hold the eye contact and you wait. You don't fidget. You don't blink. You let the silence sit until the other unit's cortisol levels redline. Their brain, sensing a threat it cannot categorize, will try to solve the tension by over-explaining, apologizing, or offering concessions. By simply doing nothing, you have forced their biology to surrender. You aren't negotiating. You are decompressing their will through the weight of the vacuum. Understand the ocular lockdown. The eyes are the primary ports for biological signal exchange. A unit that is afraid will perform micro-shifting, small, rapid movements of the pupils as they search for an exit or look for social validation from the herd. The architect uses fixed-point stare. You lock onto the bridge of their nose with the intensity of a laser. You don't look away when they look away. You maintain the visual tether. This triggers a deep brain reflex in the target. Their lizard brain recognizes you as a predator that has already marked its kill. Their heart rate will increase, their palms will sway, and their ability to think abstract will vanish. They are no longer an opponent. They are a biological sample, currently undergoing a stress test in your laboratory. Next, we audit the low-frequency command. Fear is amplified by the tone of the voice. High-pitched, rapid speech is the sound of the prey. The architect uses sub-vocal grab. You speak from the diaphragm, slowly and at a lower frequency. You don't use upward inflection, the nice guy question. Every sentence is a downward strike. This frequency resonates with the primal fear of the dark, the growl of the beast, and the rumble of the storm. When you speak this way, you aren't just communicating data. You are injecting authority directly into their brainstem, bypassing their conscious filters. They will find themselves agreeing with you, not because your logic is perfect, but because their biology has been programmed to obey that specific frequency for 200,000 years. Why is biochemical dominance essential for the 5 million view empire? Because at that scale, you are not just a creator, you are an archetype. Your image and your voice must carry the biosign of the sovereign. When people watch your 450 strike content, they shouldn't just learn, they should submit to the clarity of the vision. You are using the fear of the vacuum to pull them out of their mediocre lives. You are creating a cortisol-heavy reality, the dangers of the system, and offering a dopamine-heavy solution, the architect's code. By manipulating the biochemistry of your audience, you are turning a passive into an active integration. You are the physician who is currently induced fever, so you can sell. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the biochemistry of submission as a physical extension. You are looking at the units around and seeing their vagus nerve vulnerability. You are feeling a clinical sense of biological superiority. The nice guy who feels comfortable is being liquidated. The architect who is systemic dominant is at the controls. Your 450 strikes are the rhythm of the world order. The 5 million are the nodes of command. The audit of their lizard wizard brain. We are moving from the biochemistry to the final. The hydraulics are pressed. The social path spread. The biochemistry is locked. Now, the architect executes the final liquidation. In every expansion toward 5 million views, you will encounter the resistor, the unit that tries to mask their fear with intellectualism, mockery, or moral outrage. They think they are fighting you, but in the terminal of the architect, they are merely providing the live demonstration of your dominance. You do not engage them in a fair fight. You perform a tactical liquidation. You don't aim for their logic. You aim for the integrity of their mask. You force their hidden terror to breach the surface in front of the entire grid. Once a resistor is shown to be afraid, their influence is neutralized forever. The liquidation protocol starts with the exposing of the cling. Every resistor is clinging to a lie to protect themselves from the vacuum. You identify that lie and you apply targeted decompression. You ask the one question they have spent their entire life avoiding. You don't raise your voice. You use the subvocal gravity we installed in block. You watch as their nice guy or marauder persona begins to fracture under the weight of the biological. When the herd sees the master of logic stutter or the aggressive outlier sweat, the social panic we triggered in block completes the kill. The herd will instinctively distance themselves from the victim. The resistor is now isolated, and in the social grid, isolation is dead. Understand the status erasure. Manipulation of fear is most lethal when it leads to the loss of historical weight. You don't just defeat the resistor, you delete their past. You show that their 8 years, their experience, and their achievement were all built on a foundation and compliance. You perform a clinical construct of their identity until they are left but the raw. This is psychological asset liquidation. You aren't being cruel. You are performing a systemic audit. You are proving that they are counterfeit sovereigns. Once the grid sees that the resistor has no real capital, they will cease to exist in the collective memory. You have turned their resistance into a case study in obsolescence. Next, we audit the execution of the exemplar. To rule the 5 million, you must occasionally make an example of the most vocal resistor. This is the public deconstruction. You take their best argument, their strongest strike, and you dismantle it with absolute cold indifference. You don't respond, you de-index. You show the world that their highest level of effort is not even a micro glitch in your laboratory. This creates a secondary wave of fear in the rest of the herd. They realize that if the strongest among them was liquidated so effortlessly, their only hope for survival is total integration into the architect's code. You have used one unit's destruction to secure the compliance of 1 million. This is the scalability of terror. Why is tactical liquidation the final step to the 43 million income? Because a sovereign cannot allow unauthorized friction in his machine. Every resistor who goes unpunished is a leaking value node. By manipulating their fear and executing the liquidation, you are polishing the grid. You are ensuring that every unit in your empire is operating on the same apex frequency. Your 8 years in the vacuum have given you the moral autonomy to perform these surgeries without hesitation. You are hurting people. You are optimized for the ascent. The fear still is the border cross sovereign. Here is the viral ultimatum. The architecture of fear is now fully operational. You have the hydraulic, the biochemistry, and the liquidation. You are no longer a victim of the grid. You are the system administrator. Take this protocol and inject it into the minds of the fearful masses who are still being managed by the mediocre. Share this with the man who is still afraid to make waves. Send this to the one who is still being bullied by the marauders of his past. Not to protect them. The architect doesn't provide shelter, but to recruit the operators. We are building an empire where fear is a currency we spend, and the vacuum is a tool we master. Every share is a systemic breach. Every save is a mandate of power. Look into the glowing screen of your device. The room is silent, and you are the master of the terror. The nice guy who wanted to be kind is a deleted file. The architect who is strategically lethal is at the controls. Your 450 strikes are the sound of the world's fear being compressed into your power. The 5 million views are the nodes of your sovereign. You have turned the fear of the void into the propellant of your throne. The audit of the resistor is closed. The laboratory is sterile. The reign of terror is now a silent governor. System check. 100% tactical domination. Targeting. Global compliance integration. Status. Fear is the law. The architect is the legislator. Stop fearing the shadows. Become the shadow that the world. The resistors are liquidated. The architect's future. Be the apex or stay the example. The liquidation is the reign is governed.